Hi, my name is Ebony Bell, and I'm the founder and editor of Tag Magazine. Tag is a bi monthly print publication website with a couple podcast shows for everything lesbian, queer, and under the rainbow. I started Tag because I noticed that a lot of our LGBTQ media outlets were really geared towards white gay men, which is totally fine, but I thought it was important to tell the stories of queer women of color, trans folks. So I decided to start the publication to tell our stories. I remember the first presentation I gave for Tag, and I was walking, heading to the building, and I picked up one of our LGBTQ publications. I didn't even read it. And before the presentation, I asked somebody to count the amount of men they saw in the first 10 pages, and then go back and count the amount of women that you see. And that number was 33 men and 3 women. So that's why I started Tag Magazine. So today I want to give you some information, some quick tips about the queer women's community, queer people of color, and looking at the community differently. So I always say this, even though we are a beautiful rainbow of LGBTQ people, it's important you understand we aren't all the same, right? I know there's a lot of stats out there, like the LGBTQ community is a $70+ billion buying power, and a lot of the community makes a significant amount of money, right? Of course. But it should also be noted that majority of those numbers apply to white gay men. And it's not to say that other members of the community don't fall under this umbrella, but I think it's important to know things like this. So let's explore that just a little bit. So, an example of not being the same, right? Queer women tend to go out less and spend less than gay men, but it doesn't mean they don't spend. There are some misconceptions out there, and it's important that we all know that. So there's a great article and resource in Edge Media. The article was written by Maren Johns, and it's called The Lavender Dollar, Debunking Lesbian Spending Stereotypes. Essentially showing that queer women aren't cheap. That's a misconception. But something we have to realize is women are statistically known to make 18% less than men. But again, it doesn't mean women don't spend. Something we've noticed at Tag Magazine is queer women tend to be very brand loyal, especially when it comes to women-owned businesses and companies known for working with the LGBTQ community. Queer women support one another. They help keep our businesses going, and you can be a part of that. Queer women just want to feel comfortable doing business with you. Queer women appreciate safe spaces, and they will spend money with those spaces and those businesses. A great example is we have an agent from State Farm, Jonna Wooten, who's been advertising with us for a while. I moved all my insurance over to her because I wanted to support people that supported us. But in addition, I also wanted to support people that were showing up for our community. And I was seeing the work that she was doing to support the LGBTQ community. So that's very important to queer women. So a few things I would suggest when thinking about marketing to different members of the community. First, do your research, right? I know that so many times, like, we get press releases, for example, regarding gay men. And trust me, it's not like we don't love our lesbros. It's just that's not our readership and focus, right? And that's okay. 2, read the room, right? What are LGBTQ people saying about your company, about your product? What are they saying about your competitors? I think Subaru did a fantastic job of reading the room. They became essentially this joke, right, in the lesbian community, and they ran with it. They saw lesbians gravitating towards their cars and expanded on that, putting women in their images and showing up in LGBTQ publications. It was brilliant. But my next tip and reminder is it's also okay not to be so literal when advertising. You don't need to put rainbows or pride flags on your ads because people already know you're supportive if you're advertising within that media company, right? So images of your target market is great, of course, and encourage, but it's also okay not to be so literal too, right? So back to talking about how we're not all the same, right? Something to keep in mind is intersectionality. Essentially, it's saying that we have more than just one identifier as a person, right? For example, I'm a Black queer woman. So just because marriage equality is legal, that doesn't mean all is well and equal and just in the world. I'm still a Black person that can be profiled because the color of my skin. So how are you planning on working with queer people of color? Why not put your Black Lives Matter supportive ad in an LGBTQ publication? It doesn't have to be a Black publication. You know, LPAC recently did a study asking queer women about their biggest societal issues, basically what's important to them. Majority of them said social justice. Women of all different backgrounds, right? That's a great opportunity to advertise with queer women. And it should also be noted that environment and climate change was also up there as well. So, I love Xfinity. They advertise with Tag Magazine. And the one thing I really love about them is they switch things up with their ad. And one of my favorite ads is this one. It's a full page ad with the image of a trans man and a queer woman of color. I love this because they took the time to look at Tag and figure out who our audience is, because queer women of color of course read us, and trans men as well. I love this imagery, I love the diversity, and I love the fact that they took the time to read the room, right? So with that said, I have a few last tips. Keep in mind, there's more than just advertising, right? You can sponsor, you can be a vendor at an event, and your visibility is important and leaves a mark within our community. Another thing to ask yourself is, how do we be a part of the solution and not part of the problem, right? For example, last year, 47% of Black businesses shut down compared to 17% of their white counterparts. So what do you do with this information? How does your company show up to be a part of the solution, right? I know last year, a lot of people reached out to us because they wanted to support a queer Black-owned business through advertising, subscriptions, sponsoring our monthly web series, not just putting up a meme and saying, hey, we support you, right? I always say, don't talk about it, be about it. How are you a part of the solution? Do your work within your company and organization. I can't say that enough, because it doesn't do us any good for you to say you support us if it doesn't look like that within your own company. And there are resources there. The Human Rights Campaign has a fantastic equality index where they rate different companies regarding their work within their organization as well as outside of the organization. Also, Community Marketing Inc. has some great stats. Get to know those various parts of the community. I encourage you to start looking at the community differently. Look at promoting queer women, trans folks, queer people of color, and especially media outlets run by marginalized communities. Those media outlets are out there and you can support them. So I hope all of this was helpful to you, and I appreciate you watching. And if you're interested, feel free to reach out to me or all the folks at Tag Magazine, and you can visit tagmagazine.com. Thank you.